Hey everybody, welcome to the Irresistible Brand Podcast. I am Matt Deutschman. I'm the owner of Doubletake Promotional Marketing. And since 2010, we've been helping colleges and universities and corporations in various industries with promotional products and branded merchandise. And over the years, the four key strategic initiatives we typically support with promotional products are client appreciation, referral generation, employee engagement and retention, and recruiting and onboarding. Companies that execute these four areas well develop an irresistible brand, which clients can't help but refer to others, employees can't help but promote, and recruits can't wait to join. Thus, the Irresistible Brand Podcast, where I talk with other leaders in those key strategic areas. I am really excited to be joined today by Jeff Madsen. Jeff has served as a trusted advisor and counselor to business leaders for more than 3 decades. His passion is to guide business leaders to operate as pastors of their families, companies, and communities. To achieve that, Jeff wears multiple hats. First, he's the chair of 2 Convene CEO peer advisory boards in the Chicagoland area. I happen to be a member of one of those boards. These Convene boards serve more than 30 business executives in companies with annual revenue anywhere from $400,000 to $2 billion. Through Convene, Jeff cultivates a community where Christian business leaders grow together in their faith, leadership, and business performance. Jeff is also a certified LifePlan facilitator. As a facilitator with LifePlan, he's passionate about guiding Christian men to discover their God-given purpose. He facilitates a 2-day LifePlan to help leaders discover their unique design, talents, and heart, and then aligns those to vocational opportunities where they can best make their unique contribution and best impact. As a communications professional, Jeff has been an architect of comprehensive communication plans to drive thought leadership for major organizational change, typically mergers, acquisitions, divestitures, restructuring, and culture. Clients of Jeff's include Baxter, GE, Motorola Solutions, Pampered Chef, and Takeda Pharmaceuticals. More importantly, Jeff is a devoted Christian who aspires to become 1% more like Jesus every day. He's a devoted husband and doting dad who works to ensure his family always feels well loved by him. He's a military veteran serving more than 20 years in both the Army and Navy, and he's a diehard Green Bay Packers fan. We are recording this in the height of NFL playoff season, but when this airs, we will already know whether the Packers were able to come through this season. So no spoilers as far as that goes. But first, Jeff, thank you so much for being with me today to record this. And I want to just kick it off by asking you the first question. What does the concept of an irresistible brand mean to you?
First of all, Matt, thanks for having me. I love you. I love your company and love an opportunity to reach your listeners for the podcast. And to me, an irresistible brand is something that reflects the heart of a company, not only the outside, and Doubletake does a wonderful job of helping companies do that, but more so on the inside. And I like, you think about companies that do this well. The ones that come top of mind are Southwest Airlines, Disney is another one. I really like, as a Christian and a Christian business owner, Chick-fil-A and Truett Cathay. The founder of Chick-fil-A was famous for saying, "Hey, we're not in the chicken business. We're in the people business." So if we take care of our people, and we really invest all of our time and energy into empowering them, appreciating them, and making them feel supported, then our people are going to take care of their customers. I think that's a good example of what an irresistible brand is it reflects what the company stands for and values on the inside and the outside.
Love that. I think a common theme on this podcast when I talk with people who are experts in employee engagement and recruiting is that you take care of your people and they will take care of your customers. So you definitely hit on a powerful and common theme that we talk about through these conversations. And I love what you said about that irresistible brand stems from the heart of the company, that it really is all about the heart, right? It's not just what the company does or provides externally or who the people are internally, but it's like what the essence of the company is in the first place and how that gets disseminated out or broadcast out from the heart. And so something I really appreciate about you is in your capacity as a Convene facilitator and in your other career endeavors as well. you're connected with so many business owners who are making a serious, conscious effort to build their teams in a way that is different, noticeably different from the competition, and are employing an actual strategy toward creating a great workplace. So I want to see if you could talk a little bit about examples or anecdotes of unique and compelling things that you've seen some of the business owner clients that you've worked with do to create that irresistible brand through employee engagement initiatives and just employing strategies toward building that side of their company.
Oh, absolutely wonderful. And what's interesting, Matt, is COVID, everything we've been through in the last 2 years has really put an exclamation point on this discussion, because we're all reading things right now about the Great Recession, and probably even this number is dated, but something like 4.5 million Americans quitting their jobs every month. And what's interesting is they are Great Resignation. Yes. So the Great Resignation, each month, 4.5 million Americans quitting their jobs for another opportunity. And generally speaking, most of those 4.5 million Americans are voluntarily leaving, for other opportunities, because the Great Resignation has taught us that this marketplace, it's an employee's marketplace. It's no longer an employer's marketplace. And so employees are saying, I want to go to a company that values people over profits. I want to go to a company that makes me feel like I'm seen, like I'm heard, like I'm valued. And I want to go to a company where I feel like I'm a part of a community that's serving some greater good. And those are becoming differentiators that are bubbling up to the surface and perhaps becoming more important to employees than some of the traditional things that companies offer, like a competitive salary, benefits, and those kind of things. So, you've got to do that in this marketplace. You have to offer a competitive salary. You have to offer a solid benefits program, but employees, to get them, and more importantly, to keep them, smart employers kind of follow Chick-fil-A's lead and say, hey, we value our people over our profits, because if we do a better job of taking care of them, making them feel appreciated, making them feel supported, making them feel empowered by us, we know they're going to take care of our customers, and profits are going to happen automatically. And so we've been having this discussion, as you know, Matt, on our board since before COVID started. But for me, it boils down to three things that I see, employers in this marketplace that are doing this well and getting it right. And one of them costs money, but the other two don't. Let's talk about the one that does cost money, and these are discretionary benefits. I just said a moment ago, we're familiar with what all the traditional benefits are: salary, benefits, paid time off, those kind of things. But employees looking to go to a new opportunity, or employees looking to stay where they are, especially in the post-COVID environment, are looking for more. And that's what I call these discretionary benefits. So these are benefits that go above and beyond to make that a company can offer employees to make sure that they feel cared for, and foster well-being for their physical health, their spiritual health, their emotional health, and their financial health.
What's an example? I mean, I feel like the classic, cliche example of discretionary benefits is like, the ping pong table in the break room, the virtual happy hour. I know that those aren't probably what would be classified as discretionary benefits, or maybe that's sort of a nebulous term. So what are some specific examples that you've seen the business owners implement in the way of discretionary benefits that have really moved the needle in cultivating additional engagement with their teams?
Yeah, so here's one. One of my board members, and a lot of business owners are dealing with this in the COVID environment. It called me about 6 months ago, She owns two higher end salons in the Chicagoland area, has a lot of stylists on her team. And as we all know, in the COVID environment, there are super high levels of anxiety and depression. And one of her employees was really struggling with depression, borderline suicidal. And as the business owner, she wanted to care for that employee, but she was getting frustrated because the rates of people that are dealing with this are so overwhelmingly high that you're on a waiting list for weeks, to get in to see a counselor. And so she wanted to get this person some help right away. So in Convene, we were able to connect her to what's called a workplace chaplain program. And workplace chaplains aren't new. The military has had workplace chaplains forever, and police departments and firefighters are famous for having chaplains in the workplace. But traditional companies like a high-end salon are not necessarily known for having workplace chaplains. So she now has every single week 2 chaplains that are trained as counselors that can help navigate her employees through any issue better than she can. Because most business owners, I think something like more than 40% say, "Hey, I'm not equipped to help navigate one of my employees through a heavy emotional issue like this." So every month, these 2 counselors show up to both of the salons. They meet with the employees. They work on establishing a relationship. If the employee needs to talk about something, they've got a special place they can go to. They sit down and eyeball to eyeball. They've got a professionally trained counselor that they can talk about a weight issue in their life. And if it isn't resolved that day, they can do sessions offline via Zoom, or if a crisis emerges, even a crisis in their family, they've got 24/7 access to these chaplains who promise to call within 10 minutes, no matter if it's 3 o'clock in the morning or what. So, in an industry like hers, there's a lot of retention. There's a lot of turnover. You go from one salon to the next based on who the owner is, who the clients are, what's happening. But that's one thing she's offering her employees now. It's been in place there for about 4 or 5 months. The employees have demonstrated that they now have a level of trust in these workplace chaplains that come in each week, and it's making a difference for her because it says, "Hey, my boss, my owner, Tammy, cares enough for me that she offers this and she pays for it. So I'm going to stay here now versus going to another salon where I may have a better opportunity." That's one example that bubbles right up to the top.
Sure. So, so what I'm hearing is, you said this is the one that costs money, right? This is the example of something employers can do for their teams that costs money. But clearly it's an investment in the employee's well-being. And the statistics bear out that team members who are at work in a sound emotional and mental state, and are feeling well cared for by their employees, are going to be more productive, and obviously that will lead to increased profitability. Not to mention the reduction in turnover. Like you said, it seems like a high turnover
Right.
industry. This is something that this business owner has put in place to assist with the mental well-being of their teams. I know that, I'm a Christian, you're a Christian. Through Convene, it seems that this business owner that you've been consulting with is also a Christian, and it's a workplace chaplain program. But just to clarify, is that a program that is appropriate only for only within the context of Christians in the workplace, or people who have a faith background in the workplace, or can these chaplains also work with members of this business owner's team who are not Christians, or do not subscribe to any particular faith, or are atheists? Or are the chaplains? I guess the question is it also applicable as a secular counseling program, and does it are they equipped and well trained to be able to support team members of any faith background wherever they may land on the map?
Yeah, it's a great question, Matt. And the short answer is yes. So to be clear, the chaplains are Christians and they're trained as Christian counselors, but they really do an exceptional job of meeting people where they're at, so that they don't put the Christian faith out there, and they work first and foremost on developing a relationship. And if over time they recognize that somebody has a faith background, they will meet them there, and they will leverage that into the relationship. And if they discern that somebody doesn't have a faith background, that's okay too, but that they've still got a professional counselor who is going to work with them just to restore them to a higher level of emotional health. So that the faith background doesn't matter. And they do a really good job of meeting people where they're at in that respect.
Okay. Yeah, and something you hit on is that it sounds like they're first there just to build relationships and build trust. No one's going to be sharing,
Correct.
Deep issues and challenges that they're going through with someone until there's a baseline of trust and mutual respect and just getting to know you first. So it sounds like that's what they're there to do first and foremost. But once they get to that level, it sounds like a great benefit that clearly already is working for this.
Exactly. So yeah, that's one. Another one that comes to mind is I've got another member, and he doesn't call it this, but I will. He's established kind of an employee benevolence fund and an employee benevolence team. So every month he takes a portion of his profit. That's usually somewhere between, I think it's right around 3%, and he allocates it into a benevolence fund. And then he's asked for a team of employees to volunteer to be the benevolence administrators. And so he replenishes this fund every month, and this team of employees decides how it's going to get allocated. So like last month, one of the employees had the sudden death that wasn't expected of her mom, and so the team decided, hey, we're going to take what we've got in the benevolence fund and we're going to go above and beyond to care for our colleague's mom and our family as they navigate this family loss. And I can only imagine that spoke volumes, to the employee that lost her mom, to see how her coworkers and her company were rallying behind her in that team of loss. And then in other months, they've allocated the money to help a member move into they bought their first home, and so they allocated some money to give them a big homecoming party, welcome home fund, and covered some of the moving costs and to make them feel well loved and appreciated. So now every time that coworker walks into his or her new home, they're like, hey, I just love the team of people I work with every day because they help this happen for me.
That's a great idea, because that takes it beyond something that we do at Doubletake. We have a monthly budget that we allocate to what we call it's like basically a monthly budget we choose a not-for-profit organization that we can bless somehow, that we feel as though we're uniquely positioned to bless them. So the priority in making the decisions around how to use that monthly budget is if we can do some sort of an in-kind donation of promotional products, or if there's a project or some sort of a promotional marketing program that this organization is working toward, that we can help them get there, right, by using where we stand in the marketplace. So it's a little bit different than just cutting a check, which we would also, that's sort of like our fallback option. If there's nothing that like lines up as an imminent need, we'll just make a direct donation of money. But what's interesting about what you just described is that it's not, and the way we handle that is we rotate where a different member of our team chooses the organization each month. So it could be something that is really close to them that they care about. And we have had in the past, we had a member of our team go through a really tragic situation with something with her family. And so that month, it happened to be her choice. And she chose to direct our efforts that month toward an organization that was aligned with the tragedy that she and her family suffered. But what I like about what you just described is that it's something that's not only intended to be chosen by the members of the team, but it's also something that can have a direct impact on circumstances in the lives of the team. So, so like you said, for that individual, every time she goes to her home, she knows that it was her coworkers that actually contributed to creating that experience for her. And that's awesome, because that's something that not only, I think fires up a team that their employer is benevolent in that way, but also it brings the team together because they're all contributing towards something to help one another out. So I think that's a really cool way of, it's a cool take on like internal philanthropy, if you will. Right.
Exactly. And I'm guessing your employee, the one that got to choose, which organization that you guys were going to bless based on what was going on within her family, just thinks about you and her coworkers and the company in a different way, to know that, hey, for us, it's not all about profit. We're going to give back, and we're going to give back in a meaningful way, including ways that mean something to me.
Yeah, and I think and the interesting thing about that statement, it's not all about profit, is that, and I think the statistics bear it out, but organizations that cultivate an environment where employees feel well cared for, employees feel like they're part of a mission that goes beyond just the financial success for the stakeholders in the company, those organizations tend to be more profitable in the end, right? Isn't like, so that's sort of it's like an unintended consequence or unintended benefit of having that mentality that also is like the essence of what a business needs in order to exist anyway, right? I mean, because like we talk about this in the context of running a business as a Christian, that you still have to run a profitable business in order to be in business at all, right? Your first priority as a business is to exist financially. Otherwise, you certainly can't do any of the other things that you desire to do as a business owner that go beyond the finances if you don't exist financially. So it's okay to make money, but oftentimes the things that go beyond the finances wind up improving the financial success of the business in the end.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. And as a Christ follower, Jesus' greatest commandment, really simple. He said, love God, but love God so that you can love people, and so that's why we exist, is to love people. And, I'm looking back at some notes here on Truett Cathy of Chick-fil-A, highly, highly profitable company. Who doesn't love going to Chick-fil-A? I go there a little too frequently, guilty as charged. But here's what he says. He goes, nearly every moment of every day, we have the opportunity to give something to someone else. We can give our time, our love, our resources. I've always found more joy in giving when I did not expect anything in return. And so that's how he thinks about it.
Yeah, that's powerful. We're recording this just on the heels of holiday season here, and so I think we all kind of we all go through that experience during the holidays, right? That the greater benefit is from what you give than what you get a lot of the time. And sort of going with that, you came prepared with a great quote that also served as a great segue, because that quote about giving of your time and your resources. Let's shift gears to something. You said that there were two other things that you've seen a lot of your business owner clients implement to improve employee engagement. The first, the discretionary funds, is something that does require an investment, a financial investment. I take it the other two still require an investment, maybe not financial, but what's one of the other two here that?
Yeah, the other two, the good news is they don't require any money. The bad news is, and this is where sometimes it gets in the way for business owners, is they do require some intentionality on your part as a leader.
Intentionality, I like that.
And the first one seems really simple and profound in thought, but it's often hard to do in practice, is the whole notion of appreciation. And there's some global studies out there by really outstanding firms like Gallup that say something like 79% of people who quit their jobs lack cite lack of appreciation as one of the primary reasons for them leaving. And so think about a time, this is true for me, I'll see if it's true for Matt, like when a manager or a boss or somebody that you've worked for in the past really appreciated an aspect of your character, something you accomplished, or an aspect of your personality. What did that mean to you?
What did it mean to me when someone that I worked for appreciated an aspect of my character?
Right. Sent you a note or pulled you aside and said, "Man, you really went above and beyond. And I saw what you did, and that means something to me." What did that mean to you?
It's been a long time since I worked for anybody, but yeah, I mean, I thinking back to when that has happened. Yeah, it was everything. I mean, it was like, why do you work hard, right? You work hard because you take pride in what you do. So when someone recognizes that, you have a solid work ethic, that really speaks back into the essence of why you're there in the first place and why you're working hard. So yeah, for me, it was to be recognized for work ethic in particular is something that was extremely meaningful for me, because it's something that I pride myself on in the first place.
Right. And me too, so if it's something that they wrote, a handwritten note, I've got a file here at my desk and I save those, and once in a while on a really bad day, I might go through some of those notes and just kind of be reminded of other people who have appreciated what I've done or how I performed, or if it's something they said, it sticks with me, and so that's what really the whole notion of appreciation is all about. And like I said, it seems simple, but what gets in the way is, as managers or bosses or leaders, there's this little message that sometimes plays back in the back of our head. It's like, well, that's what I pay them to do. That's what they're expected to do. That's on their quarterly goal sheets. They're just doing their job. So why should I go out of my way for something that they're already getting paid to do? But the thing is, we are human beings, and so when we have this internal need to be seen and to feel like we're valued, especially by our superiors, and when that happens, it really motivates us. And let me go back to scriptures here. Psalm 119 says, "How sweet your words taste to me. They are sweeter than honey." So sometimes a word of appreciation to an employee will have a whole lot more stickiness factor than an annual bonus or a discretionary bonus or something that you give them that's a little more material. So that's something we've been talking a lot about on our boards over COVID, is to really encourage our leaders that sit on our boards to be more intentional about giving authentic praise to their employees, to their partners, to their suppliers, to their customers.
Let's explore that concept of authentic praise for a second, because I think I fall into this. So two things. Number one, I saw I was at a professional development or leadership development seminar a few years ago, and something that blew me away was how you have to say thank you like 7 times for someone to hear it once. Mm-hmm. The amount of time you think you're saying thank you, it's not really landing. It's not really being heard. So overdo it if you want someone to really, understand that you're trying to show appreciation, right? So number one, it's frequency. But I think also that when you say authentic, I think I fall into this this trap sometimes, or this pitfall of just, if I truly am appreciative, I'll say something like, "Oh, thanks for everything," or I really appreciate you, or something like that. And while those may be sincere and accurate statements, maybe they're not fully conveying the level of meaning to the person on the other end that I'm trying to get through to, because I'm not messaging it properly. So is there something that we need to be doing to really emphasize, have the authenticity and the sincerity really come through in when we praise and say thank you to.
Yeah, I mean, I like to learn and lead from the best, and for me, the best is this book. It's called The 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace. It's by Dr. Gary Chapman and Paul White, and you only need to go to chapter 4. It's only 12 pages, and that gives you everything you need to have a level of mastery in appreciating your employees. But what they say is, number one, you need to appreciate them in a way that is sincere and authentic, not hollow. So hollow appreciation sounds like this: nice job, Matt, you did good. Okay, so what does that tell you? And for you, does it land? Probably not. So sincere and authentic appreciation will be the kind of appreciation that validates them for their character, their personality, or their accomplishments. So let's try this in another way. And I have the privilege of serving you as the chair of the peer advisory board that you're on. But Matt, I just want to say, hey, in the months since COVID has started, I just want to honor and bless the intentionality you have put into building and fostering a healthy culture for your team at Doubletake. I see how you openly recognize your employees to me, to your partners. You talk about them openly in a board meeting about what a difference they make and how strong your team is and how you've hired people that are smarter than you. And because you've done that, Matt, I've also seen that your employees care about you in a fierce way. They want to serve you. They want to do well for you. They're willing to take your leadership and your fellowship. So I just want to bless you for what a great leader you are in affirming your employees. So that's the difference between sincere and authentic and hollow. Making sense?
Makes sense. Thank you for the compliment. Well, and I guess even just, I'm like psychoanalyzing my response to that, but like, yeah, the first time it's like, oh, okay, nice job, or you think I'm doing something well, cool. But what you just said is like, it really knocks me back. Like, wow, things I hadn't even considered, but things that you just really showed me something that I exhibit to you, and you put it into words for me to make me really understand the impact that it's made on you. So I think that's the point you're trying to drive home there. And I also want to just say that even like talking about authenticity, coming out with quotes and you have a book at the ready to reference and everything, like that is 100% authentic Jeff Madsen. In every interaction I have with you, you are the most well prepared and well thought out person I've ever met, in terms of like always really looking for sources and resources and you said it earlier, trying to learn from the experts, learn from the best, right? And that's something that is sort of like the marquee of your character, that none of this, just because we're recording a podcast right now, is canned in the way that you're coming out with statistics and all that kind of stuff. That's like, you live and breathe that type of research and analysis to really hone your craft. So was that a good job?
And I don't know about you, but you did a phenomenal job, and this has been the best part of my day. I won't remember much else of anything I've done today. I will remember this conversation, and hopefully you'll remember it being on the receiving end. And when you hear that from somebody that you follow, especially when that person you follow is somebody you respect, when you appreciate them and you can be very specific in calling out the character trait you value, the accomplishment where they went above and beyond, they are more likely to do it more often for you. So when you said that for me, I'm like, wow, now that means something to Matt, and he's showing me that it means something to Matt. So now anytime I interact with you, that message is going to be playing back in the back of my head, and I'm going to be more likely to say, hey, I want to make sure I am well prepared because he values that and he sees that I'm good at it and I want to do more of it. And you'll likely do the same.
So two quick things before we come in for a landing. I want to number one, well, I'll go backwards. I want to make sure we hit the third thing that you said, is something that leaders can do to support employee engagement. But before we jump into that, I just want to kind of like role play an example of how to show appreciation authentically to a member of the team. So how's this? If I had an employee who just did a great job leading a project with a client, rather than saying, hey, you did a really good job with that client. Like that's sort of the hollow version, right? But if I had said something more along the lines of, hey, what I really liked about how you handled that project with the client is that you took the lead right from the get-go to make sure that the client felt comfortable with us and that we were communicating well with the client all throughout. The fact that you took a leadership role in leading the communication, that helped the client feel more comfortable and put at ease to know that we had that project under control. And in the end, we had a better outcome and the client was happier and less stressed by the project itself as a result. Like saying something like that would be better. It takes a little bit more thought of like, okay, what did I really like about how this member of my team handled that project? But saying that is going to wind up paying dividends because it's going to cultivate more of that behavior and also make that employee really understand what they did well and feel appreciated for it, rather than just saying, hey, you did a great job, you knocked it out of the park, or some kind of like, cliche phrase that we all say and that I'm very guilty of saying all the time to people.
Right. And the way you just frame that example, at the end of the day, what that communicates to your team is, I saw you, I was paying attention. I'm just not plugging and chugging here in my machine every day, but I saw you, and the difference you made had an impact for our customer too. So you described what you saw and you described what the impact looked like. And so now you're more likely to reinforce that behavior, not just for her, but the others on your team if you affirm her publicly.
Love it. That's a great, an unintended benefit, if you will, of that as well. I see that if you do that in a public setting, it then kind of sets forth the not just the expectation, but like the sort of the gold standard of our behavior as a company for other members of the team as well. All right, so let's tackle this third thing that you said that employers can do to cultivate their team's engagement and foster additional retention.
This is the whole notion of empowering, and what this is, again, this one doesn't cost you money, but it does cost some intentionality. And we just had a great lesson on this at our board meeting last week, Matt, is the whole notion that as leaders, me included, guilty as charged, most of what we do is we tell and we direct. We tell and direct others what to do. I need you to do X. I need you to do Y. And what we don't realize is that the person on the receiving end of that message, when we tell, our brains are turned off. We're really not receiving that information. We're receiving an order or a directive. So we're not there. We may be there in person, but we're not there in terms of being fully engaged. And what this author told us, his name is Bob Tiede. He wrote this great book called Great Leaders Ask Great Questions. And he wrote it after being in leadership for 5 years and mainly being a teller, he's learned the value of asking questions, So research shows that when we tell and we give advice, sometimes you need to do that and sometimes it's necessary. But if you really want to foster a healthy culture and have a high level of engagement, you need to flex the other muscle. He used the analogy of you need to use both planes on the airplane and you need to ask just as much as you tell. And he said, a leader who leads by asking questions is 10 times more effective than a leader who leads by telling.
So what's an example of a good question that a leader can ask in replacement for where a leader would tend to just tell?
Yeah. So here's a good analogy. So let's say you've got a customer problem and one of your employees is going to come to you and say, hey, Matt, we have a problem with customer A. What do you think we should do. And naturally, you're going to come up with an answer and say, I think we should do X, Y, and Z. They salute smartly, they go off and they do X, Y, and Z. What if you replay the tape in that situation and your employee comes back and instead this time your question is, well, what are you going to do to make this situation better? So they've presented the problem, you've listened to it, but you've kind of given the baton back to them to say, what are you going to do to make this situation better? So now their brain is turning on, and they are going to come up, well, we could do this, and we could do this, and we could do this. You may respond to one of those. And let's say your dialogue continues. So you say, hey, so tell me more about this one. Why are you thinking this one? And you foster another chain around dialogue about that. And usually, whatever answer you both mutually arrive to is probably better than the one that you would have initially prescribed when she said, hey, Matt, what do you think we should do? And so it's this whole art of inviting your employees and empowering your employees to help you solve problems. So as the business owner, as the leader, that doesn't always fall on our shoulders, because there's this myth in leadership that says, hey, if you're a good leader, you always have to have the right answer. Well, somebody like Bob would say, hey, if you're a great leader, you're going to ask great questions instead, and it's okay not to have the right answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, you're speaking directly to some of my personal experience too. A couple months ago, I remember we had an experience where we needed to solve a problem for a client, and I had two members of my team come to me and kind of explain what the problem was. And my response was, well, what do you guys think a good solution would be for this? What do you think we could come up with? And truth be told, I had no idea. I was more just drawing a blank, like, man, this is a tough one. I don't know what we need to do. But together, my two team members, they were just sort of like talking, and the three of us were on the phone together, but then they came up with a great solution together that we then offered to the client, and they were really, really appreciative of the fact that we took the time to figure out a unique solution that kind of, without going into too much detail, the problem had already occurred, so there wasn't a lot we could do to like walk it back and undo the problem, but it was a really good kind of like make good on the problem that had already occurred. And before you think I'm just patting myself on the back, hey, I did a great job at asking questions. This morning, I had a member of my team ask me a question, like, kind of like a what do you think we should do type of question about a situation going on with a client, not a problem, but just situation. And I didn't do as good a job kind of empowering her and bringing her into the process of coming up with the decision and the solution. So that's something that kind of is challenging me, just hearing you talk about that. I thought about it and I said to her, okay, this is the precedent that we're going to set for how we address these problems in the future, which, is not necessarily like a bad thing. It's like you said, it's telling. It's not dictating and, running a totalitarian company here, but it's, I probably could have done a better job in terms of long-term development of us as a team if I had asked my member of my team, hey, ask her to consider it for us to together come up with a solution with her input, rather than just her presenting the situation to me and me saying, here's what we're going to do, and here's how we're going to handle it going forward.
Right.
So,
yeah, beautiful. And the trick too with this one, Matt, and the growth edge and again, I'm guilty as charged. So if you're going to ask people more questions, you also have to train yourself to stop, pause, and listen to their answers versus kind of prescribing in your head, here's how I'm going to respond to what they're saying now, or what's my next question be, or how am I going to respond to X? How am I going to respond to Y? What this notion of empowerment and asking questions is really about is making sure that people, whether they're the people that work on our teams, our customers, our partners, our family at home, this is really about making sure that they're being heard. We heard you, we heard what you said, and we're going to act on it. And a quote he shared with us in our board meeting that I loved, he said, being heard is so close to being loved that they're almost indistinguishable.
Yeah, and it goes back to the whole notion of when someone else is talking, don't just be thinking about what you're going to say in response. Actually listen. And I know that that a big point of value in this concept of asking questions is if the other person doesn't respond instantly to your question, don't just jump in and give your answer or rephrase the question, whatever. Give it space, let it breathe, let the person think. And it's important to ask the right types of questions, not leading questions that are going to have someone kind of come and, like the idea of like, oh, let them think it's their idea if they come up with it. No, that's not the type of questions to be asking just so that they wind up coming up with your idea, but they could call it theirs. Like, that's not the point. You want to tap into their brain potential. And the only way to do that is to really ask them a question that's going to activate their brain in a way that yours doesn't have access to. So
yeah, you're so right in what you just said, and what you ask is also equally important, like you said, Matt. And I wrote this down, and I actually tried it at home, and it worked. Because I have a 17-year-old daughter at home, so we sit down, we have dinner usually in the evening, and we might say something like, "Well, how was your day at school?" And you can predict, what the answer that most 17-year-olds would say. Good. All right. What does that tell me? And what am I learning from her as a result? And so he kind of encouraged us to reframe those kind of questions and say, hey, tell me about your day at school. What did you learn today that you didn't know before? Well, now you're going to get a different kind of answer and a different kind of perspective that demonstrates if you listen well, you are hearing her, you're getting a new view into your child, your employee, whatever it might be. And now both of you are going to learn something from it.
That is a great note for us to close on. Jeff, I really appreciate you being part of this podcast. We talked about ways to leverage employee engagement. We talked about discretionary benefits, which is a financial investment, but then we also talked about empowering members of your team, particularly through questions, asking questions, and then praise and appreciation of your team. And those two things, they cost, the cost or the investment is time, attention, intentionality is the word you use, and practice. But they cost no money. But they could pay dividends for sure. So Jeff, I really appreciate you being a part of this.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Irresistible Brand Podcast. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. Again, I'm Matt Deutschman from Doubletake Promotional Marketing, where we specialize in promotional products and branded merchandise with a focus on the strategic initiatives of client appreciation, referral generation, employee engagement and retention, and recruiting and onboarding. Organizations that execute those areas well create an irresistible brand. If you haven't checked it out yet, visit doubleTakeBrandBarometer.com for our quick 5-minute assessment to see how well your organization performs in those areas and get some advice on where you can improve and where you can leverage existing strengths. Our mission is to help you make your brand irresistible. See you again next time.